Welcome to our Ask Me Anything show. How are you guys doing today? Um, so it's a time of learning. It's a time of being flexible, right? All those kinds of things. And so I thought for August we would have a second go round of just you being able to ask your questions, because there's so many different individual situations that are happening. So this is your chance to be with us live. Go ahead and type in the comments your questions. And I wanted to show you this new um, online tool that I just discovered late last night. So this is what I used for the welcome. And this is called Classroom Screen. And so let me pull those down. Um, these are the different tools. So this was a text tool that I used. But, and there's a bunch of other tools here that I'll show you in a minute. But what I thought was so cool is sometimes, it can be unengaging, unmotivating for our kids with different, lessons that they're having to do online. And there are ways that we could have the student be more involved in the actual, instruction and the engagement. So I love this. So you need to check out, what is it called? Classroom Screen. And they have a free version that has all these things. So there's no reason to pay any money for it. So while we're waiting, Anita's here. Hey, Anita. And Mary, yes, she says, thanks for this. Yes. And Holly is saying prepare. So Holly, are you asking about like how to prepare for what's coming up? And have classes started for you? So Janine, she says, good afternoon. Are you familiar with CX or yes, the state groups? If yes, how do you think they should support parents, school systems, and the community? So, there is in the federal, regulations that there's a regulation about each state needs to have a state level special education advisory committee council. And then depending on your state, some states say each school district needs to have their own district special education advisory council committee. And I guess because I've served on both, sometimes it feels like token parent input, and it doesn't seem like it's an effective use of our time. But that totally depends on the culture of either your local special ed advisory committee or your state level one. I am sure there's ones that are, producing more things that are helping families and everything. So it depends, right, on how active the state council is or your local ones. But they can provide a lot of information, and especially the state one, because the whole purpose is that state special ed advisory committee is giving input to your state Department of Education. So they're advising the State Department of Education. So it should be rich discussion. I mean, people from the State Department are going to be there, right? A lot of times you might have professors and special education from higher ed, represented. Of course, you're going to have, I would hope, a majority of parents on the committee. So usually the state will say, we need so many parents, we need so many teachers, whatever. But that can be a powerful group. I guess what my experience in listening to other families is sometimes it's not that effective. So let us know more if you like what state are you in, and how are things going from how are things going with your school district? So let me come back on here. Great. So Holly, okay, yeah, she said she had a spelling correction. My question is, I behave so much in public education. Oh, I believe so much in public education, but 40 minutes of instruction in one content area a week is not going to prepare my student for the next grade level. Do I do an alternative homeschooling program to supplement what he's missing and keep him enrolled in public school so they can continue to get funding? Um, yeah, that I'm sure is something that a lot of parents have been wrestling with this, summer since March. And it's such an individual decision. As an advocate, as a parent, I'm grateful that my son isn't school aged anymore and having to make these decisions. But um, so it really is dependent on what you feel in your gut, what you think is going to be the right thing for your child. Some of the things that you can think about is from an advocacy perspective is I really want to help public education become even better, right? And there are so many creative, involved, inclusive minded teachers out there. And we need to make sure that we continue to show gratitude. And there are places where inclusive education is not, you know, happening. I mean, it's not something that the school has embraced. And that can be like really frustrating if year after year you just feel things aren't going well for your child. So, my advocate perspective is I would still hope that as a parent, I could help them change. And through, a variety of things. I have a video that's in our membership group, and it talks about, I think it's the 9+ ways of marketing inclusion. Because I think we have to think of ourselves as salespeople, even though that makes it feel kind of weird because it's inclusion is more of a value and everything, right? But the reality is we do have to be marketers when it comes to universal design for learning, inclusive education, all of that. So Holly, yeah, I would just see, do you have the time and energy to keep asking the school district to make changes? Um, do you withdraw your child and just do homeschooling? And then you talked about, do you leave them in? And I wouldn't let funding be a criteria for me. What I would look at is if we keep him enrolled and he does 1 hour, instruction in one content area a week or whatever, that we supplement that, for other times during the day and almost like try out that homeschooling element and then see, you see what you've been offered from the district. If you can't get them to budge on that, that's what he's going to be offered. And you compare it to when he's not doing virtual learning with the district, what can we do at home? And get a feel for homeschooling. Is this something that excites me, that, worries me, that I have to come up with all these ideas? So I don't know. What do you think, Holly? Does that make sense to kind of maybe keep them enrolled and try out, what homeschooling would be like? Let me see. And she said, yes, that school started. Anita said, hi, Anita. Would like some suggestions and how an online instructional aid can help or assist my student. I think if I can supply some ideas, they'd be willing to try them. And that's a perfect question to ask, Anita. So, because I've been trying to brainstorm, I've been writing, and I'm almost done with this an e-guide about distance learning. So if you're interested, write e-guide in the comments. But I've been thinking about this, and so there's a couple examples that I can share, and then Marcy and Holly and all the others here with us, please add to these ideas. So one idea is to have the paraeducator be in the Zoom or whatever platform, be in the online meeting, the online class instruction, while your child and his classmates are, or her classmates are watching. And so the para's knows what the general lesson is about. She can also, if she's worked with your daughter before, probably pick up on body language, and she can send a quick chat to your daughter and say, is everything okay? Are you understanding, or, whatever. But that could be a way that the para, either through, a text to you, or she could put something in the chat box just to the teacher and make a private message for the teacher to kind of check in and make sure your daughter's following along or whatever. So the para can go to the online classes. She can help check in with your daughter. And then after that online class, the para could set up just a one-on-one session. And it could, if your daughter's tired of looking at the computer screen, it could be, a FaceTime call on the phone, because most teenagers like using the phone, right? But there can be that way. There's a mom, and I think I gave this example last week, that Courtney Hansen, she's an advocate in the state of Washington, and she had a meeting with the IEP team. She was, of course, there. And what they came to decide upon, which was pretty exciting, was the para is actually coming to their house, and the para will be there to help the student when there's virtual learning going on. And then when the child's doing more independent work, the para leaves and the parent can follow through on things. So there are, times when the para could actually come to the house, and that just depends on, health conditions of everybody. The other thing is, a lot of teachers use breakout rooms for small group discussion. And so if the teacher gives a lesson to the whole class, virtually, and then students go to breakout rooms for small groups, you could have the paraeducator join that small group where your daughter is, and help support your daughter through the small group activity or discussion. But yeah, what are some ideas that you guys have come up with? I mean, the other thing that we always hope parents have time to do is make modifications, make accommodations. So those kinds of things, it's not direct instruction with your child, which hopefully she's getting from a teacher, a general ed teacher. But the para can also be doing indirect support, and like I said, making accommodations. So if they send home packets, that the printed material is in a font that, is large enough, there's enough white space, whatever accommodations your child has for like paperwork, you would want the para to help prepare those materials. So and then also you want the para, giving input and communicating back with the general ed teacher, special ed teacher, with yourself, to see how things are going. So that could be one avenue of communication. But you guys are smart in here. Marcy, Stephanie, Marissa, so give us ideas on how a paraeducator could be used. So let me see if I want to make sure I didn't. Let me go back here so I get more people. Okay, so Mary says, really looking on a way to utilize a remote aid. Currently, they are just on the Zoom call for the synchronous part of the class, but I have to do all the work with my child during the synchronous time. Any tips? So, Marianne, yeah, so see if what we just talked about would be helpful as far as, the purpose of the aid being on the lesson is for her to know what the content is, for her to understand the sequence that the teacher gave, and she can like re-explain that if necessary to your daughter, or to your child. So yeah, there's ways that they could be used, and it just depends on, sometimes paras can also be, data collectors, and it just depends on the training of the para, and you want it to be a simple kind of data collection method, so paras can help with that. There's a lot of things that they could be doing. And just like when we're in the brick and mortar school and we don't want the para like hovering or being Velcroed to our kids, we also have to think about that for, the virtual environment. So if we're in the brick and mortar school and some of the strategies and accommodations that we use are having peers help the child, and so maybe after the lesson, your child and a couple of friends would be in a small group, and it could be, a phone call or whatever, and helping go over the lesson with your child. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know your child at all. But trying to look at, what's going to be most helpful. If there's like way too much work after that online lesson, then as a parent, it's like, I can't do all this with my child. Somebody at school is supposed to be doing this. You could consider, can the para have some time where she comes to your house? You could, have the IEP team consider, with social distancing, can your child meet outside of the school building with the para? I mean, there's creative ways that we could get some extra support. But yeah, those are a few ideas, but I would love other people to put in their ideas too. Stephanie, how are you? How do we make inclusive education work when our kids will be isolated in both face-to-face and virtual school? Thinking of going back to functional academics during the pandemic. I think that's kind of the $1,000,000 question, right? And that's been something that I've been including in this e-guide to distance learning that I'm almost done with. But yeah, it's can be done. It's not going, we can't exactly replicate what happens at school. And so we try to think of what made it work at school. Are there certain kids in the general ed classroom that your child gravitates towards, that they have a better relationship with? So we know when we want to do peer small group activities that we're like real intentional, that we put those friends in that, group with your child. So having the teacher and yourself, just kind of have a chat to talk about what do you think would, what are the key ingredients to what made inclusion work during the brick and mortar, school time, and what are some possible ways that we can try and replicate some of that. I think having students work on like a group project is an excellent way for them to keep in touch with their friends from the classroom. I think, the other thing, I was on a webinar the other day, and Shelley Moore from Canada was speaking, and she was saying we have to remember connection before curriculum. So even though we get kind of I do. I can get narrow focused on IEP goals, narrow focused on general ed curriculum. And it's like, yeah, but this is the beginning of a school year. And we always take time at the beginning of a school year just to get to know each other, right? We want your child forming relationships with that new general ed teacher. The special ed teacher may be somebody they've worked with before, but still, we want that reconnection with people they've known, and we want that time to have new connections, not only with their teacher, but with their classmates, because now they're probably in a different grouping of kids, right? So, all of those things that are good strategies to use when kids are physically together are good strategies for us to use. And there's like there's so many neat like online games that you can play and have kids get to know each other. I know this spring teachers were doing things like, bring your favorite stuffed animal for kindergartners when they would do their Zoom meeting. Or for high schoolers, it was like pick an object in your bedroom that really represents your values and bring that to share. So there are ways that we can virtually get to know each other and make connections. So we want to do that first. But then also, once, more of the regular schedule gets rolling, how can we make that inclusive? So having a peer buddy, maybe there's just one student that your child would like to hook up with and kind of be partners with things, for different assignments or activities. And so, yeah, so you guys also chime in with what your ideas are. And, I think, we look at things like sometimes there's accommodations and IEPs for the child to get classmates' notes. That can still happen. That can still be a connection. And I guess, instead of just like emailing the notes, what I would prefer is like if there could be like a phone call, a real conversation with their peer buddy or whatever. Because just getting email is not really forming a great connection, right? It's better than nothing. So think of how your kids can be connected with their classmates, what worked during, typical school days. And is there a way that you can tweak that? I think the other thing is to make sure that your child gets invited to general ed classroom, virtual meetings. I know last spring, some of the parents that I work with as an advocate, their kids weren't even getting notified that, the general ed classroom was having a Google Meet the next day or whatever. So sometimes it's real simple things like make sure my child's on your class list and you have the email. So when you do class things that my child is invited to them too. But yeah, Stephanie, I think that is going to be something. And what I love is when we have time like this where we can be sharing ideas, because you guys are coming up with great ideas. And, this could be a great forum for you to come back to this and keep adding some examples of what you've seen happen for your child or, for a friend, so we can get kind of brainstorming. Okay, let me go here. Holly said, I'm hating my emails to the district. I'm so frustrated right now. I feel like I come across as a not nice person. Yeah, I mean, that's like the frustration and the overwhelm that we're living with, right? And I've done a video on this before, and I was just thinking, it's also part of my e-guide about distance learning. But, there are different steps, kind of like a template that I give parents to use for emails. And sometimes that template can be helpful and it gets you focused on ways to make sure you share your feelings and your needs, but in non-judgmental ways, and make specific requests. So there's that framework that will be in this e-guide. And if you're interested, write e-guide in the comments. I can get back with you. But and then there's the old trick of write the email and don't send it for 24 hours. Um, so yeah, but you know what? I mean, I do have a mug that says, "Hello, my name is that parent." Um, because that's the thing. I mean, we're talking about our kids, so we do have to be advocates. I mean, we have to kind of keep our emotions in check, which can be hard. I mean, I remember always looking for a Kleenex box when my son was young and I sat down at an IEP meeting. It's like, do they have Kleenex? I'm going to probably cry. So yeah, or the other thing that really helps me is I vent. So I vent to my husband. My husband is very patient with me. And I get a lot of that emotion out. So like if that's one way you can do that with like a girlfriend or a spouse or whatever, um, and get some of that emotion out by venting, by talking about it, and then going back and like, kind of doing some deep breaths and be in a different space when you write the email. So that's a technique that works too. And so if you're watching the replay, give us your ideas on what works for you guys. Marcy, hey Marcy. Oh, huh. Yeah, that's great advice, Marcy. So she said, suggest focusing on the child's needs first, then help the school district. Yeah, I think whether or not they get a few $1,000s for your child is not to me like on my criteria list of, how I'm going to make a decision. But yeah, you just have to decide, right? And let's see. Okay, so I see some of you guys asking for the e-guide, and Anita, yes, you will get it first, and Mindy, because you guys are trailblazers, so I'll be finishing that up, and I'll share it with our trailblazers, but I'll also share it with others. So thanks for asking that. Marcy said some school districts are allowing. So is that like behavior interventionists in the home for distance learning? We'd like more info from other parents about this need. Yeah, that's a great comment too, Marcy, or a great idea. So when I'm hoping that you're having an IEP meeting and using the IEP process to talk about some of these shifts that need to be made with distance learning. Number one, we want to try and keep the current IEP intact as much as possible. But if you do need to make some adjustments in the services and have a discussion about, using, and sometimes they're community behavior interventionists that are contracted with the district, sometimes they're district employees that could, do some actual in-person, education with your child at home. So if anybody's had that kind of service, that would be good to know. Also, some families are asking for the district to provide like in-person speech therapy or occupational or physical therapy. And if the district isn't able to provide that, and that's really what your child needs, is that in-person contact, some parents are then asking the district to pay for them to go to a private speech person or OT or PT that is doing in-person, therapy, and have the district pay for that. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities, right? And that's why sharing ideas in this kind of a form is really good because it's like, boy, I never thought of that way. Oh, like last night, one of our trailblazers was talking, we had a live show, and she was saying that I think more than one teacher in her son's school is using an amplifier system. So when the teacher is, talking behind their mask, that it's easier for the children to hear that. So that could be an accommodation that you want to add to your child's IEP. Um, that the teacher would use, I don't know exactly the technical word, amplifying. I mean, she was talking about an FM system, but sometimes that's a little more like, you just have to figure out how that's going to be tied in so all of your students can hear that and not just like a targeted student. So there's things like that can be happening. So yeah, I think, looking back, think back to what things were like in the spring distance learning time and what worked really well, and make sure that you share that with this year's teachers. And, what was a flop, share that. And then also, if you have ideas for solutions, right? Because sometimes it can be real frustrating that, teachers are inundated with this didn't work, you can't do this anymore. And it's like, okay, well, what are some ideas of what we could try instead? And I'm not saying you just have one solution, because sometimes we get stuck on one solution. And then if the teacher offers one, we're not open to that. But I think, you as a family brainstorm, at least two different solutions to a concern that you have, and then say, I'd love to hear your ideas too. Because there are ways that we can make adjustments, but if we don't share that with teachers, they're not going to know that information. And chances are, whatever they adjust for your child is also probably an adjustment that other kiddos could use too, right? Let's see. Mary says, any suggestions to help with peer social connections? Yeah, again, I think that is our biggest, challenge, right? I mentioned earlier there's quite a few interesting, fun, appropriate for children online board games or, game activities. If that would be something that your child would be interested in, that would be fun for the teacher to set up that. And it can be different groups, right? It doesn't have to be, the whole 25 kids in the classroom. But maybe different groups play different things, right? Because they're interested in different kinds of games. And I was looking at one this morning, but I'll put a link in the comments afterwards. But yeah, there's some fun things like that kids can do. I think we always want to individualize it. So looking at your child, Mary, what they're interested in, if they have, certain hobbies that they love to do, and having them match up with peers with similar interests. And, I mean, I don't know how old your child is either, but, for younger kids, like a typical thing was, a lot of parents would set up a play date with a friend, right? Well, depending on what the situation is and in your city, is there a way that your child and, one or two classmates or whatever could get together, and do, wear a mask, do social distancing, but still hang out and see each other. So look at some of those things, and then look at, like, how are they making social connections at school. So if there's, one of the times that they were socially connected was during lunch, I mean, you could have a lunch bunch, a virtual lunch bunch. Or with social distancing, if things are, fine in your community, have the kids, maybe meet at a nearby park and they have lunch together and they're spread out. Um, so look at how they made connections at school. How can we try and replicate that at home as much as possible, right? Given the circumstances. But yeah, I think that's an important question that we're going to just have to keep having like this running list of ideas like, oh, yes, yes, we got to try that one. So let me go down. Marissa says, currently we are in person, but creating special education contingency plans for closing of the county. If we have done virtual therapy previously with private therapists and it's not effective or appropriate, are parents having success with advocating for in-home services or paraprofessional assistance or even classes, paying for private therapies? Yeah, I think, that's just one of those things, Marissa, to make your case for based on your child's needs. Um, if you have any like notes that you jotted down from the springtime, as far as how the, online, therapies for speech or whatever was like a disaster, to be, no, don't just say disaster, but to write down, that my child was only able to pay attention for 2 minutes at the beginning and then would want to, walk away from the computer. So the more specific you are, then the more realistic, the more like they really understand the need. I guess a general caution I have is like if online learning was not a good time in the spring, is we also look at how can we change that? Is there ways that we can change that online learning, to make it more engaging, to make it based on your kids' strengths and interests? So that's a possibility too. But yes, you could talk to the district, make your case, have it be according, to your IEP process in your state, and then look at, that's part of what you're supposed to be doing, right, for placement and for services, is looking at what are the range of options that we could do. The default might be, teletherapy, and that's like, okay, that might work for some kids, but as we discussed, that doesn't meet my child's unique needs. So what else could we do? Could we have the district send somebody? Could we have the district pay for private therapy where, in-person therapy is happening? So yeah, those are all options. And if you talk about them and you request them at an IEP meeting and the district is pretty stuck on, no, we're just offering teletherapy, that's all we're offering, make sure that gets written in a prior written notice where they explain their rationale, what they use to consider, and you get a description of their decision making in a written prior notice. That's like really important. But yeah, there are parents having success with parents coming to the house and people meeting somewhere else. So it just depends on, kind of like what's happening in your community, as far as safety and that. So let's see. I skipped over a bunch here. Let me go back up. So how are you guys doing? Okay. I supplemented learning by asking for them to send me a copy of state standards and MAPS test scores so I know where my son was at and then where he needs to be going towards, and then got homeschool curriculum based on MAPS tests to fill in gap. And by the time my son was done, my son, look at this, leaped 4 grade levels. This was 2 years ago, and he entered 6th grade at the 2nd grade level and left 6th grade. Look at this, at the 6th grade level. We need to clone you. So yeah, there are, you know, one, there's homeschool curriculums that are fabulous, and there's a variety of that. So you can pick a curriculum that, you know, really is based on what your child needs and what their strengths are. So, yeah, congratulations. Isn't that exciting? It's like, yes, have high expectations that our kids can learn. So yeah, that's like wonderful, right? We like to know and hear about times when things go well, and we can do better. So Marissa says the district says it's their policy to not have in-home services, but teletherapy or virtual is not helpful for a kinder 5-year-old with Down syndrome. School is only offering virtual. School's caution or school solution is to lessen time offered of services and reduce Zoom calls. I'm a single mom working 8 to 5 on my own Zoom calls with a 4 and 5-year-old. So I'm not really able to proctor, and your kid can't attend at all independently. So, yeah. So, Marissa, that is like, yeah, I mean, it's like, what do they expect? So, I mean, there's lots of different levels here, right, to kind of tease out. But, so it's one, I would ask you if you've had a, you know, either in person or virtual IEP meeting this fall to talk about this in a formal meeting. I've talked to parents recently and I'm like, oh, how was your IEP meeting? And they go, no, it wasn't really an IEP meeting, but you want to make sure that you are going to formal IEP meetings to talk about these kinds of concerns, because decisions made then need to be part of, you know, either an amendment to the IEP. Some districts are calling them distance learning plans. It needs to be in writing somewhere that, you know, we're going to be looking at alternatives to just virtual learning for this child, because that's not based on his needs, right? That's not based on his strengths. And so if the district is saying this is our only offer of FAPE, or only offer of that free appropriate public education, that's like a huge concern. And I'll get my red flag out. That's like a huge red flag. So one of the things that you might want to consider, Marissa, and anybody else with us live or on the replay, is I am offering free 30-minute phone consultations for back to school. So if you'd like to set up a free phone call with me so we could talk more about like the real specifics, let me know and I can give you a link for that. So let's see. I always try to go a little bit and then I go too far. So, yeah, Marcy's saying you probably need an advocate to help you get in-home support. Yeah, and I think the other thing, Marissa, that, you know, is something that I always, you know, want to make sure parents remember is that when the district or the school says this is our policy to only offer virtual learning, then you just politely ask, you know, it would really help me understand this better if you could give me a copy of the policy that you're referring to. And if the policy is just like generic guidelines for remote learning or whatever for your school district, that doesn't, you know, that's not like written in stone if it's guidance from somebody. Even if it's school approved, you know, school board approved policy, and they can give you a copy of that written policy, your child has an IEP, your child has additional rights as far as having that appropriate, right, education. So, yeah, that's, you know, and it depends on your relationship with the staff, what you want to do, you know, and how you want to do it. But I think, you know, keeping the discussion at the lowest level, trying to collaborate, trying to come up with some, you know, other options. And, following up and making sure that you get it in writing. So if you need to, ask for a facilitated IEP meeting or something like that, you have like that paper trail of what's been happening. Um, and Marcy says FaceTime on Messenger. Yeah, as far as ways that kids can connect. Hey, Betty. She said, my friend is an aide. Our district parent needs to be on video. My friend asked, what do the child like? She has read a story to one, asked questions, told her to have the parent get a cake mix. And the aide said, okay, needs so much water, so much oil, this kind of math. And then in the pan, just some kind of crazy difference thing. This is no classroom. Teacher had a parent meeting. This is one-on-one. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly the context of that, Betty, but I mean, I know teachers are giving ideas for families about how to use like naturally occurring things, like, you have a chore chart you have to check off. That's getting used to using checklists. You help make dinner at night. You help make breakfast, whatever. That's a way to use, math in real life situations, right? When they're following recipes. So teachers are sharing ideas like that with families. And to me, it's like, this is an option. It does put the parent, though, like in that responsibility role. And when you're trying to also work from home, right? I mean, how is that going to be possible? So I think, families are going to have to start having discussions about what other options are available. If the district can provide, sometimes there's substitute paras that they could contact with or contract with to go in the home, and then that, the para in the school building is doing something else. I mean, there are possibilities out there, and we just have to, not get stuck with this is all they're offering. I guess this is all I can ask for. You can generate more ideas. And that's something we can do on a phone call too. Marissa says, our district is an incredible mess right now. It's good to see others are having success right now. Our local advocates are not having success here right now either. Well, that's hard. Marissa, what state are you in? The other resource that parents have in every state is the Parent Training and Information Center. They're federally funded. So sometimes your Parent Training and Information Center usually will have some type of parent advisors, and they can be really helpful people. And they have usually a close connection with the State Department in your state. So sometimes that can be a nice in for you. So that would be one thing I would suggest. Angie said, e-guide. Yes, I've got to get that done. I keep thinking of more things to write. And it's like, I just have to stop and get this out. Anita from Virginia, what are some assessments or tests that can be given to track success or mastery of skills or goals in a remote setting? This past spring, no assessments were given, with the reason that without the teacher there to proctor, there's no guarantee the test was completed independently. And so, Anita, are you, it sounds like you're looking at more kind of formative assessments like they could do throughout, the months, versus like an assessment for an evaluation. There are more assessments that are now being, schools are getting permission to do them online. But I think what you're talking about is maybe like progress monitoring kinds of things. There are a lot of computerized assessments that teachers use in the building, like Ames Web. For some secondary students, they use the Reading 180 program. That's something that your child can do in the computer. And if you want to videotape it so you show you're not giving any answers away. So, you know, I think there's ways too that the teachers can do progress monitoring virtually. If your child has a reading comprehension goal to, be able to answer inferential comprehension questions, the teacher can, listen to your child read a story. The teacher can ask those inferential comprehension questions and, record your, write down, record whatever your child's answers. I mean, they can still do that kind of progress monitoring virtually. And I think, for the records, you always want the teacher, not only to note the date, but also that the setting, the environment was in a virtual setting, right? So they just remember that down the road. So, yeah, I would look at what they're using now for progress monitoring and see if that same thing can be done. And either the teacher do it virtually, or if it's something computerized, that your child have the ability to sign on, to that program from home and take it. I know, like, my granddaughter, and they don't use it that much for progress monitoring, but in her class last year, they used Accelerated Reader. You can go on the computer, take the multiple choice, test on, the book that you just finished reading. It's not really progress monitoring. It's, I'd like to see something a little bit better, but it is a way for teachers to see, kids are reading, they are, signing on to Accelerated Reading and taking the test. So there's a lot of computer programs like that that have that, kind of progress monitoring component. And so if you guys that are here or watching the replay, if you have specific things that your child's school has used, let us know. Marissa says, can you share thoughts on a read regarding how to decline certain assessments if there is not a proven need, such as cognitive testing or behavior analysis? Yeah, totally. And Marissa, I don't know if you know that I have a son with Down syndrome. He's an adult now. He's 32 years old or 31. I can't remember. But I remember we never signed consent for the school psychologist to give Dylan any kind of cognitive testing. And there's like a ton of research, right, that shows IQ testing really isn't very helpful. And so, we would give consent for, I don't know, the speech assessment or whatever, and other kinds of assessments, achievement, assessments. But yeah, I mean, you have, and unless your state regulations say something totally different, which I would be surprised because my understanding as an advocate, I'm not an attorney, but as an advocate, my understanding is parents are part of the evaluation team. So one, you should have them, you can request a virtual, if you need to, evaluation team meeting, because that's a time where you can talk about things. So many times what I see happen is a school will, fill out a checklist, like we're going to evaluate in cognitive, speech language, motor, and they just kind of normally just check all these things off, and they send it home and ask parents to sign it and return it. But I really think, as a parent and as an advocate, that it's important that you have evaluation team meetings. And one of the things that the evaluation team is charged with doing is looking at the information that they already have and what additional, if any, assessments are needed. So to me, the portfolio of work that Dylan's been doing, the feedback from the general ed teachers and their reports, to me, all of that was rich information that was so much better than what we would get from an IQ test. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I didn't see a need for that. But you can say, I give permission for these. I don't give permission for cognitive testing. And, that's that's one of the rights, in my understanding, that you have as a parent. So yeah, that's something that you can certainly ask for. My eye is tearing. I think it's my allergies. Um, so we were wondering, I can't remember now who was talking about the homeschool curriculum. So if you can put in the comments what homeschool curriculum you were using, because I know parents are looking for that too. Oops. Okay. This isn't like very smooth today. Okay, let's see, because I like skip around here. Okay, Mary. Her daughter is 14 in the 8th grade. My problem is services. Current curriculum is 5 hours Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, no breaks online. Oh, geez. Would have to pull her from class for services. Wednesday is for services / teacher help. Her services used to be push-in outside of one-on-one speech, but that can't happen now. Plus, they can't fit all kids' intervention in one day. Should I pull from a general ed class like PE or art, although that is one break from that 5-hour block that she enjoys? Yeah, I mean, this is like, kind of like we have these extremes where somebody's only getting, an hour of instruction in one content area a week, to some school where they're thinking kids are going to like sit in front of a screen for 5 hours without a break. I don't know anybody that is a good plan for. And so, yes, that's, somehow the plan that your school came up with. But guess what? Your child has individual needs that have to, be provided for, right? I mean, they have an obligation. So again, I think push-in services can happen. That's not going to be totally the same, but there's no reason why you can't have co-teaching going on in a virtual setting, and do it real similar. I mean, the teachers, there's a variety of ways co-teaching can look, and you can shift it depending on the subject, depending on the activity. But I mean, you can have co-teaching going on in those push-in services through a virtual meeting where, teachers divide the kids in half or whatever, and they have 2 different, rooms or 2 different Zooms going on. You can have it where, one teacher is kind of like doing more hands-on to like supplement what what the general ed teacher maybe is verbally saying. So you could have the co-teacher at a whiteboard, and you can have a whiteboard on screen, and then the special ed teacher is like drawing visual graphics to show that. So there are ways that you can still push in. So we don't want to assume, and I was going to put this back up, I don't think we want to assume that, that it can't happen now. Yeah, and so that's the thing. I mean, again, Mary, I would want to make sure that you're having these discussions in an IEP team meeting. So things are, recorded, as far as either in writing or also audio recorded, but you want, there to be a record of these discussions, these parent input and concerns. So you really want, to request an IEP meeting and to sit down and say, I understand that the school came up with this plan, or the district. However, when we look at my child's IEP and the strengths and the needs that she has, 5 hours of virtual learning is not appropriate. And as a team, we need to come up with some other ideas. Again, I think you bring some ideas, not that you're married to him, like, this is the only thing that I want and I demand this. But, to say, what about co-teaching virtually? I mean, there's resources out there about co-teaching virtually. It's happening, right? And I always say, if it's happening in one school in one state, it can happen in our school in our state, right? So yeah, I wouldn't give up on not doing push-in services. Um, the other thing that is important when we're in brick and mortar, and it's important when we're virtually, doing distance learning, um, is that, like, front loading of vocabulary and some prerequisite kinds of skills. So sometimes, it can be you as a parent, now that, we're in a more virtual environment, where you help, kind of go through some of the science or social studies or even math, whatever, vocabulary before the lesson. Or a para could do that. But yeah, if there wasn't much pull out brick and mortar, I really don't want to give that up now, and have her be more segregated and have her lose out on things like PE and art, because, yeah, they need that break. So again, if you want to call me, we are doing free 30-minute phone consultations for back to school. So let me know if you'd like one of those. Marcy. So she had a comment for Anita that parents can make their own progress notes or measurements, keep documentation to use at future IEP meetings, use quantitative data as much as possible, measure time, quantities, durations, frequencies. Yes. And that's in my e-guide also. And actually the Trailblazers already have this chapter where I said, if you if you have a refrigerator and a cell phone, you can take data and measure progress. So on the refrigerator, you can jot down information as you're thinking of it, as your child is working on something. So those can just be your, like, memory notes right there. Or a cell phone for videotaping. I know a lot of parents in the springtime were videotaping just short, few minute videos of their child working on an activity, or during, how they were approaching, like, a video class or whatever, and sharing that as evidence of, this is what they were, how they were reading out loud, and do, like a 2 or 3 minute recording. The teacher can take 1 minute of that, and the teacher can do, like, a reading running record. So there are still a lot of ways. And I think, we just get like, oh my gosh, this is, like, so different than school. How's this going to look? But yeah, I mean, the problem is this, how are we going to measure progress now that kids are there virtually or whatever? And then it's like, what are some possible solutions? And there are possible solutions that we can do. And the more we share, I keep doing that, the more we help each other, right? Let's see. Okay, so she said, I'm in California and I did research based on my child's weakness and strengths. So my son's weakness is writing. So we used the EIW, Excellence in Writing curriculum. And science we did online through Power School. And history we did art and timelines called Draw. And right through history, math, we did Matthew C. Yeah, Matthew C is a really good curriculum for more visual learners. Pneumacon is also, a multi-sensory, way of teaching math. So I know a lot of families that have used Pneumacon or Matthew C. Yeah, thank you. Those are good ideas. We like getting ideas. Yeah. How to document learning strengths and weaknesses for IEP and learning accommodations. Yeah, so hopefully you got some ideas what we were just talking about. Let's Let's see. And how to document during asynchronous the child's strengths and weaknesses for IEP and learning accommodations. How are teachers documenting during the synchronous time? Yeah, and that's one of those questions that I think are important. And why, even if it's not your child's annual IEP time, in the fall, that you request a meeting, because all of these kinds of questions, like, progress monitoring questions, you want the team to talk about that, because sometimes that's easily dismissed. We kind of focus on goals and accommodations and services, but progress monitoring is really important. And that's in my e-guide too. But yeah, there are specific things that you can adapt for, remote learning. But again, a lot of things can still happen. And what you want to be asking is, so how is the teacher going to be progress monitoring? And what kind of information are they taking when they're doing, real live, lessons with your child? There's teachers that are still doing their reading groups virtually, right? So like when I was a teacher and I had a reading group, I had, like a folder for each student, and I would jot down different notes, what I was seeing from the student during that reading group time. I mean, the teacher can still do that virtually, right? I mean, she can still have a small group of kids come in for reading group. Come in virtually. And she can be taking notes about, the reading skills and what they did well, what they still need to work on. But yeah, ask that question. Just say, I'm just curious, how are we going to, how are the teachers going to be tracking progress? And, have that be an IEP discussion. Okay. Let's see. Marissa's in Texas. Oh, Dallas Fort Worth Partners Resource Network and Path Parents too. Yeah, so I was in Dallas Fort Worth a couple years ago speaking. So yeah, and then we also have a Trailblazer membership group for parents. It's a monthly membership group, and we have like several parents that you probably know from the Dallas Fort Worth area. So yeah, and I think you were saying like even the advocates there were having a difficult time, but I know it's no fun. So Anita said yes, that she was looking at formative, and thank you for the ideas. Yeah, and right now they don't even have recent data. Said it's all or nothing district policy. I'll ask for it. Yeah. Because sometimes it's not really a written policy, but they like to say it is. So a lot of times when they say, well, that's our district policy, you just always want to say, oh, great, that I would love to learn more, share a copy with me, please. And then it's like, oh, well, it's not really written, but that's how we do it, which is different. But even, like I said, if it's a school board adopted policy and it's not working for your child, then you need to talk about how that's going to be, accommodated for your child. So I think we are done with the list of questions here. And we're a little bit past the top of the hour. Thanks for being here. Next Thursday, usually I do these Q&A times the first Thursday of the month, and August just got a little bit changed around. So let me know if you would like me to do a more formal training next Thursday, and I can do that, and take some of the questions and maybe, go into that deeper. Or if you would just prefer to have another Q&A session, because what I like about it is that we get to really address what you're wondering about versus me doing something that maybe isn't pertaining to you. So let me know if you'd like a formal training, or next week if you'd like more Q&A time. And thanks for being here. I never introduced myself at the beginning. If you're new, I'm Charmaine Tanner, and I am passionate about helping other parents like you become an even more effective advocate for your child. As I said, I'm a parent myself, and I'm also a retired teacher, so I know what the school system is like. I know how parents have to advocate. So hopefully, with those two systems, those two points of views, I can help you. So let me know if you'd like a free back to school 30-minute free phone consultation, and we can set that up. And until then, thanks for doing what you do every day, and we will see you next Thursday. So bye for now.